All right, Tank Davis stops Frank Martin in 8 rounds. This was actually a really, really good fight. I really enjoyed this fight anyway. Frank Martin started this fight. Well, let's just go back to the start, right? So, Tank Davis last April last year, 2023, beat Ryan Garcia. Now, he's not fought since then, up until last night. And in the ring, you could see for the early rounds, he was rusty. You know, he really didn't have his time and quite where he needed it to be. But saying that, after about 2-3 rounds, that came straight back. He was really good at that point. Frank Martin, on the other hand, Frank Martin is a fighter who he's not a bad fighter, but he kind of goes under the radar because he's really just there, you know, in the nicest way. He's there, he's good, but he's not spectacular. Whereas Tank Davis, he really is spectacular. So I kind of talk over to this fight, okay, it's a decent opponent, you know, it's not terrible. I'm not as up for it as I maybe should have been with some other Tank Davis fights, because I just felt Tank Davis would win. But I thought Frank Martin will at least, he'll be competitive for a little bit anyway. And ultimately it's just going to be Tank Davis getting to him, counter-punching, ultimately getting the stoppage, because Tank Davis is, pound for pound, one of the biggest punchers in boxing. And when you look at Tank Davis, he looks like he's so compact. He is small, but he's so compact. The way he throws those shots, you could tell that there's so much power in those shots. There really is a great deal of power in them. So I kind of thought, okay, ultimately Frank Martin will probably get taken out, but how will the fight look until then? And the first few rounds were actually really good for Frank Martin. He was getting through with a lot of shots on Tank Davis. I say a lot of shots, but he was getting through with shots on Tank Davis. Tank Davis, though, you always felt was just warming into the fight. And after the first couple of rounds, in which you could definitely say, well, you give them to Frank Martin, definitely, because Tank Davis didn't do a great deal. But you could see he was looking to counter. You could see he was looking to get some shots going. He was missing with some left hands. He was missing with a few uppercuts. But then once he started finding his range, and I just think warming into the fight, getting that timing together, he started landing more frequently. And even the shots that were kind of glancing, you know, you look at some of the kind of looping left hands Tank Davis was throwing. And even and you could tell that like he wasn't landing cleanly. Like some of them were real looping and they landed, but they didn't land flush. But you could see that Frank Martin was even kind of like, oh wow, you know, don't want to take these flush. The power was there. And what I noticed was that Tank Davis was obviously pressuring Frank Martin, and he was Tank Davis, when it comes to pressure, he's actually, it's something that people don't really talk about enough. Like, he's a great counter puncher. He throws good straight shots. But when he was pressuring Frank Martin, what he was doing, it's strange, because again, you don't really associate Tank Davis with this. He was cutting off the ring very well, using his feet to good effect. And there's a way you, as the pressure fighter, can pressure without really using any strength or energy. Because what he was doing was he wasn't exerting any real energy. He was just using his feet to close the distance, close the range. Frank Martin was getting himself constantly pinned up against the ropes and sometimes into a corner, and he was having to exert more energy just to stay away. And you could tell that the pressure that Tank Davis was doing, even though he was throwing, yeah, but he wasn't exerting a crazy amount of energy or anything like that. But you could tell with Martin, it was a real case of, you know, keep moving, exert energy, don't let him catch me on the ropes. But he kept doing it. He kept getting back into a corner. He kept getting caught on the ropes. And you just knew, right, it's a matter of time. If you're struggling to stay away from Tank Davis, if you're letting yourself get caught, especially in a corner, you know, you're just asking for trouble against a puncher like Tank Davis. And that's ultimately what ended up happening. As I said, after about round 3, round 4, that's when Tank Davis really started to come into this fight. He started to have more success. He started to land more frequently on Frank Martin. And then ultimately it was in round number 8 where he got Frank Martin again. And I think, was it Joe Goosen on commentary, or was it, what's the other guy's name? Morin Ronaldo, I think that's how you say his name. They kept commenting and saying, you know, Frank Martin should not allow himself to get back into a corner. I know, but he kept doing it. And in round number 8, he got back into a corner. He got hit with a lovely little short left uppercut, which that did it. You know, that stunned him. And when he was stunned, it left him open for a big left hand from Tank Davis. Tank Davis needed no invitation to throw it, needed no second guessing, anything like that. Threw the left hand, big left hand, couldn't land it any cleaner. That was it. You know, Frank Martin, he was down. He was not. To his credit, he did try and get back up, but he was never going to beat that count. You could have given him a count of 20, and he wouldn't have beaten that count. And even if he did, he would have been in no position to continue. You know, Tank Davis knew it then and there. He was up on the ring apron. He did a backflip back into the ring, you know, WWE style, backflip from the top rope. And yeah, he gets the win. It was a good fight. Listen, I have always said about Tank Davis, I think he is a tremendous talent. Whether you like him or dislike him outside the ring, and there's a lot to dislike, at the end of the day, when he is in that ring, he is tremendous. Whatever your opinion of Tank Davis is, in the ring on fight night, he's tremendous. The speed, the counter-punching, the balance, the power, it's all there. It's all what you want in a fighter. When you look at Tank Davis, that's what you really do want in a top fighter. And when he puts it all together like he did tonight, he's just tremendous to watch. He can be a slow starter at times, and I think with this one, it was more down to him being out of the ring for so long, because there have been times like against Leo Santa Cruz where he started quite slow, and ultimately his power and he was told the difference has been the difference, and it's brought him back into the fight. But with this fight right here, you know, after the first couple of rounds, you're kind of, okay, Frank Martin's doing all right. But you knew Tank Davis would be in it. And then once he started applying the pressure, you could see it. You could see that Frank Martin was really having to exert a lot of energy just to stay away from Tank Davis. And you were like, it's like a train. It's like you're running back from a train. Instead of going left or right, you're just constantly running away from that train. Sooner or later, you're going to slow down. The train's not going to slow down. And it's going to absolutely take you off the tracks. That's exactly what happened in this fight. You know, Frank Martin was running from a train, being Tank Davis. He got tired, it caught up with him, and it just took him clean off the track. That was Tank Davis in this fight. Great performance. Really liked what I seen. Frank Martin will come again. You know, he will. He has a lot of talent there. He's not an elite fighter by no stretch, but he's a very, very good fighter. And surely he can pick up a title sooner or later. This was at 135 pounds. The talk now is that Tank Davis will face Vasily Lomachenko, who is now the IBF champion at 135 pounds. I love the fight. The only problem is they should have had this fight 7 years ago. When Tank Davis beat Jose Pedraza, I can't remember what card that was on. It was very early 2017, if I remember correctly. I can't remember exactly the card. Might have been one of the... It might actually have been Badou Jack versus James DeGale. Might have been that card, because I know he was... Badou Jack was a Mayweather fighter at one point. But either way, when he won that title, that was at 130 pounds. He was IBF champion. And straight away, they were just, no Loma, not Loma, blah, 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 blah. They were looking Lomachenko. And that was 7 years ago. Now they're willing to fight him. Years later, where Loma, you wouldn't have seen it, you wouldn't notice it based upon the Kambosos performance. It was a brilliant performance by Loma. But he is slowing down. He's not as good as he was. He's not. But he is still tremendous. That's Lomachenko is tremendous. Him against Loma now, you know, I love the fight, don't get me wrong. I still think it's a very, very good fight. It's a very competitive fight. I would probably make Tank Davis favourite. I would. If they'd have fought way back when, Loma all day. But I think now Tank Davis has improved enough and Loma has slowed down enough that I think it's a Tank Davis win. I would still love to see the fight. You know, that's what they're talking about. Loma versus Tank. At the end of the day, I'm all for it. I think it's a very good competitive fight. If you are a champion, you need to be willing to unify. Simple as that. Tank Davis is a champion. Loma's a champion. Let's get a unification in. Let's even see if Tank Davis, the winner, can go on and fight Shakur Stevenson. Let's just go and see it. You know, Tank Davis will eventually most likely go to 140. And the landscape there is very interesting. Devin Haney, Regis Prograis, Liam Parrow now. I don't know where Ryan Garcia is going to end up. Will he stay at 140? Will he go to 147? There's a lot of big fights there. Lopez, Teofimo Lopez. But I think there's still work at 135 for Tank Davis to do. And I think him against Loma, him against Shakur, they're fights I'd like to see, quite frankly. And they're fights I want to see. And this performance was very good here. I only hope that Tank Davis can stay active, because I think an active Tank Davis is dangerous in general, regardless whether he's active or inactive. But an active Tank Davis, that's something to behold, and I hope he stays active. The only problem is PBC. The rumor mill was that they were the rumor mill I was hearing about a month or so ago was that this was their last show with Amazon Prime. That's apparently not the case. Apparently they are going to have a show with Caleb Plant and someone else. I forget who the other guy was. But apparently they are going to do some non-pay-per-view shows. But like, yeah, this is their second show this year, and we're looking at maybe one more show, and then God knows what's going to happen for the end of the year. So they're not doing many dates, not doing many shows, and all the while you have Queensbury, Matchroom, Top Rank shows consistently working with the Saudis, and PBC are still just there. They talk about crossing the street. I wonder how many of those guys are wishing they had crossed the street. So let's wait and see what happens there. In terms of the fight, as I said, great fight, enjoyed it, good knockout. I love seeing a big knockout. And yeah, look forward to seeing what Tank Davis does next. I'll leave it there, people. Hope you enjoyed it. Smash the like button if you could, subscribe, of course, you haven't already. Peace.